After a series of failed relationships, I've learned to never expect too much from men. They come and go, promising love and commitment, but in the end, they always leave. And each time they do, I'm left heartbroken, questioning what went wrong. So when I met Mark, I already knew how it would go. He seemed different at first, charming, attentive, and affectionate. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that it would end just like the others. He would leave when things got too serious, and I would be left trying to pick up the pieces of a broken heart once again. I wasn't going to let that happen this time. This time, I would take charge. I wasn't going to be the one left heartbroken again, like all the other times. No, this time, things would be different. I would be the one in control, not him. I had learned from my past mistakes, and I wasn't going to make the same one again. I was tired of being used and then thrown away when things got tough. Every time, I gave so much of myself, only to watch the relationship fall apart. But this time, I wouldn't be the one left alone, crying in the dark. I had a plan, and this time, the story would be different. I wasn't going to let Mark walk away from me like all the others. No, he would regret this. I would make sure of it. I had a feeling deep down that this relationship wasn't going to last forever, just like the others. But instead of sitting back and waiting for him to leave, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I had thought about it long and hard, and I was ready. I would get pregnant. That would be my way of keeping him in my life, even if he decided to leave me. I would raise the child alone, and I would be strong. I wouldn't need anyone, not even him, to feel whole again. But there was something else behind this decision. It wasn't just about making sure he couldn't leave me. It was also about showing him the power I had. I wanted to prove that I could take control of my own life, no matter what happened. I wasn't going to let anyone decide my future for me. This was my choice, and I was going to stick with it. The more I thought about it, the more confident I became. I could do this. I could teach him a lesson he would never forget. He wouldn't be able to just walk away without thinking about what he'd done. This time, I would be the one in control. And nothing was going to stop me. I had made up my mind. I was going to get pregnant, no matter what. I didn't care if Mark wanted it or not, or if he loved me enough to stay. That wasn't the point. I didn't need him to be happy, and I didn't need him to feel complete. My decision was already made. I was going to take control of the situation in a way I never had before. I knew the pattern. Relationships always started out exciting and full of hope, but they never lasted. They always ended the same way, with me heartbroken, alone, and questioning myself. I wasn't going to let that happen again. This time, the tables would be turned. Instead of feeling empty when he left, I would be the one with the power. I would have the child, and I would raise it on my own. The plan was simple, almost too easy. I would get pregnant, and when Mark eventually broke up with me, just like every other guy had done before, I wouldn't be the one left with nothing. I would have something that would always remind me of my strength. I would have a child, a life I could shape all on my own. No one would be able to take that from me. I didn't need his love to feel complete. I didn't need anyone to tell me I was enough. This child would be my proof that I was strong, that I could stand on my own 2 feet, no matter what happened. And when he left, as I was sure he would, I wouldn't cry or beg him to stay. I would raise this child with pride, knowing that I had done something for myself for once. No more waiting for love to make me feel whole. I would be complete all on my own. At first, everything seemed to be falling perfectly into place. Mark and I were still dating, and he acted just like any boyfriend would, affectionate, caring, saying all the right things. He seemed genuinely interested, and for a while, I thought maybe things would actually work out. But deep down, I knew better. I wasn't fooling myself this time. I wasn't getting swept up in the moment. I let things move forward, allowing the relationship to flow naturally, but in the back of my mind, I was always preparing for the moment when I would make my move. I kept my emotions in check, never letting myself get too attached, because I knew what was coming. The clock was ticking, and I had a plan. It didn't take long before I started making my move. I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. I wanted it to happen fast, So I deliberately set things in motion. I tried to get pregnant, making sure every step was carefully planned. I knew once I did, Mark would eventually break up with me, just like all the others had. It was predictable. They always left once things got too serious, once the fun part was over. I wasn't going to be surprised when it happened. I was ready. And when he did, I would be prepared. I wouldn't be caught off guard. I would already have what I needed, the power, the control, the proof that I could do this on my own. Mark's departure wouldn't hurt me. Instead, I would hold my head high, knowing that I had planned it all. I wasn't just going to survive the breakup, I was going to thrive. I would be ready. But as time passed, something unexpected began to happen. At first, I didn't know what to make of it. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I had planned everything so carefully, sticking to the plan and telling myself I wouldn't get attached. I didn't expect to feel this way, not after all the heartbreaks I had been through. I had prepared myself for the moment when I would have to let go. But now, something was changing. It started with little things I never thought would matter. At first, I ignored them, told myself they were nothing. But they kept happening, over and over, until I couldn't deny it anymore. The way Mark looked at me with those soft eyes, the way his arms felt around me when he hugged me. I didn't expect to care about such small things. I had always kept my distance in past relationships, staying guarded so I wouldn't get hurt again. But with Mark, it felt different. His touch, his smile, it all made something stir inside me, something I wasn't sure I wanted to feel. When he smiled at me, a real smile, not the kind people give just because they have to, but one that came from somewhere deep inside, it made me feel warm. For a moment, I almost forgot the plan, almost forgot why I was doing all of this. It felt like maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Maybe Mark wouldn't be like the others. Maybe he wouldn't walk away when things got tough. I wasn't sure what to think anymore. I had promised myself I would stay in control, that I wouldn't let myself get swept up in the feeling of love. But now, as I saw him looking at me, holding me, something inside me whispered that maybe he was the one who wouldn't leave. Maybe he was different. But deep down, I knew I had to be careful. I couldn't let myself get too attached, not when I had so much at stake. But no matter how hard I tried, the feeling kept growing, and I couldn't shake it. One day, Mark invited me over to spend the weekend together. I knew what that could mean. I knew he might want to take things to the next level, but I was ready. I had thought about this moment for a while, and everything seemed to be falling into place. I told myself I wouldn't let myself get caught up in emotions, that I would stay focused on my plan, no matter what. When I arrived at his place, everything felt normal. We spent time together, talking, laughing, just enjoying each other's company. But as the night went on, things started to feel more intense. I could feel the chemistry between us, and it was clear that the weekend might not just be about hanging out. Mark was giving me those looks, those little gestures that made it obvious he wanted more. I could feel myself getting nervous, but I didn't let it show. I had been through this before, and I knew what I had to do. Then, it happened. He led me to the bedroom. I knew what that meant, and I couldn't deny that part of me was excited, even though I had a plan. In my mind, I was still sticking to it. I had prepared myself for this moment, telling myself I could handle it. We were boyfriend and girlfriend, so it felt right in some ways. We both wanted the same thing, and I could see it in his eyes. I was ready, and so was he. We shared a moment together, the way any couple would. The world seemed to fade away, and all that mattered was the two of us in that room. I told myself this wasn't going to change anything, that I was still in control. But deep down, I couldn't ignore the emotions that were starting to stir. Everything was happening just as I had planned, yet somehow, it felt like more than just that. After we were done, everything felt strangely calm. Mark had been gentle, caring, and everything went just as I expected. We shared something intimate, something that felt real, but in the back of my mind, I kept reminding myself that this was all part of the plan. I didn't let myself get too caught up in the feelings that were stirring inside me. I had done what I needed to do, and now, it was just a matter of time before I saw the results. Days passed, and everything seemed fine. Mark and I continued to spend time together, just like before, and I tried to keep my emotions in check. But deep down, I knew the moment would come when I would find out if my plan had worked. I wasn't sure if I was ready for it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Then, it happened. I found out I was pregnant. It was like a wave crashing over me, a feeling I wasn't expecting. I had prepared myself for the news, but when it came, it still took me by surprise. My heart raced as I stared at the test, seeing the results clear as day. I felt a mix of emotions, a strange combination of excitement and fear, but I knew this was the moment I had been waiting for. It was real. I was pregnant. And just like that, my plan had worked. I couldn't deny it now. Everything was about to change, and I was going to have to face the consequences of my decisions. At first, I was excited. I had followed through with my plan, and now I was pregnant. It felt like I had finally gained control over my life, like I had one somehow. I thought everything would be simple after that. I would raise the child on my own, without needing anyone. But as the days went by, that excitement began to shift. It wasn't the same anymore. I started to feel something I hadn't expected. It wasn't just about being pregnant, it was about the life inside me. Every day, I felt this growing connection with the tiny baby, a little heart beating inside me. I could almost feel it with every breath I took, every movement I made. It was as if the baby was becoming a part of me in a way I never imagined. I started to wonder about everything. Was this really what I wanted? Was my plan a mistake? The thought of raising a child alone started to feel different now. It wasn't just about the power or control anymore. It was about something real. I was carrying a life, and that life deserved more than just a plan. The day I found out I was pregnant, I should have been filled with joy, but instead, I was filled with fear. What if Mark didn't want the baby? What if he left me because of it? But even more than that, what if I couldn't do this on my own? What if raising a child without him was harder than I imagined? The first few weeks were a blur of confusion. I had been so sure of my plan, but now things didn't feel as simple as I had imagined. Mark was still the same, sweet, caring, and attentive. He had no idea what was happening, no idea that I was carrying his child. He continued to treat me like everything was normal, as if nothing had changed, and it made things harder. I thought about telling him, but each time the words came to mind, I hesitated. Part of me wanted to be honest, to tell him everything about the pregnancy, about my plan, about everything I had done. I wanted to see his reaction, to know what he would say. Would he be surprised? Would he be angry? Or maybe he would understand. Maybe he would want to be a part of it, maybe he would want to stay and make things work. I wasn't sure, but a part of me hoped he would. But then there was another part of me, a part that felt afraid of what might happen if I told him the truth. What if he didn't want to be a part of it? What if he walked away like so many others had before him? I wasn't sure I could handle that. I didn't want to lose him, not now, not when things had just started to feel real. I worried about what would happen to me, to the baby, if he didn't want to stay. Every day, I wrestled with those thoughts. I could feel the weight of the secret pressing on me, making everything feel more complicated than I ever thought it would be. Should I tell him? Should I keep it to myself for a little longer? The uncertainty hung in the air, and I didn't know what the right choice was anymore. Our relationship continued, but as time passed, something started to feel off. At first, everything seemed fine. Mark was still kind, still sweet, still making me feel special, just like he always did. But slowly, I began to notice little things that started to add up. We weren't as close as we used to be. The conversations felt less meaningful, the moments we shared started to feel more like routines rather than genuine connections. I could feel it, even if Mark didn't seem to notice. It was as if we were drifting apart, and I didn't know how to stop it. I tried to hold on, to make things work, but something was slipping away. I couldn't ignore it anymore, the way he didn't look at me the same way, the way we no longer spent hours talking late into the night. The distance between us was growing, and I wasn't sure what to do about it. The worst part was that he didn't know the truth. He didn't know I was pregnant with his child. He didn't know how much I had changed inside, how my feelings had shifted since I found out. But maybe it wasn't just the pregnancy that was changing things between us. Maybe it was something deeper, something that had been there all along, something I hadn't wanted to face. I could feel myself pulling away, too. There were moments when I wondered if I was trying to protect myself from the hurt that seemed to be coming, or maybe it was my fear of how he would react once he found out. I started to realize that maybe the connection we once had wasn't enough to hold us together anymore. And as that thought began to settle in my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to break, even though I wasn't sure what that meant for us. I knew this moment would come eventually, but when he called me, I could feel the weight of it all sinking in. My heart dropped. I had been preparing myself for this, yet when the time arrived, I wasn't ready. The dread of the conversation I had been avoiding hit me like a heavy storm. I could feel it in my gut. He was about to break up with me. He was going to walk away, just like the others had, and I would be left alone, carrying the consequences of my own actions. He paused for a moment before speaking, his voice quiet and hesitant. "I think we need to take a break," he said. "Things have been moving too fast, and I'm not sure I'm ready for all of this." His words felt like a punch to the chest. I could hear the uncertainty in his voice, the distance starting to grow between us. This was it. The moment I had been expecting, but somehow, it still hurt more than I thought it would. He didn't know. He didn't know I was pregnant with his child. He didn't know how his words were affecting me, how they were tearing at the plans I had made for myself. I had been so sure that he would leave, that I would raise the child alone, but hearing it from his lips, hearing him say he wasn't ready for all of this, made everything feel real in a way I hadn't prepared for. But despite the pain, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to let this change my path. The pregnancy was already part of me, and I had made my decision long ago. I would keep it. I would raise the child on my own, just like I planned. If he wasn't ready to be a part of it, that was his choice, but I would carry this child, give birth, and continue on alone, but stronger. As the weeks passed, everything started to feel like a blur. I spent a lot of time thinking, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. The decision I had made to get pregnant, the way things had started to fall apart with Mark, I couldn't change any of it. The past was already written, and I couldn't go back and undo it. But one thing was certain, I still had control over the future. What happened next was up to me. I wrestled with my thoughts every day. The question weighed on me constantly: should I raise this child alone, just like I had planned from the beginning? Or should I give Mark another chance, despite everything that had happened? Could I trust him? Could I even trust myself? On one hand, I had always imagined doing this on my own. I had built up this idea of independence, of not needing anyone to complete me, not even a man. I had convinced myself that I didn't need Mark, that the child would be enough to fill the emptiness. I could be strong, do it alone, and show the world that I didn't need anyone to be happy. But on the other hand, something had changed in me. I started to feel differently. The baby wasn't just some idea anymore, it was real, growing inside of me. And as much as I tried to deny it, I felt a connection to Mark that I couldn't just ignore. He was the father of my child, and despite everything, a part of me still wondered if there was a chance we could make things work. It was confusing. I didn't know what to do. The plan I had made, the decision I had felt so sure of, now felt like it was slipping through my fingers. I had to choose, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to make that decision yet. Would I choose independence, or would I risk opening myself up to him again? Would I raise my child alone, or would I give Mark a second chance? One evening, as I sat in the quiet of my apartment, I placed my hand on my belly and spoke softly to the baby. "I don't know what the future holds," I whispered. "But I will always love you, no matter what." It was then that I realized something important. I had made a choice. And no matter what happened with Mark, I would be okay. I would raise this child with or without him, but I would never regret the decision I had made. The day finally arrived. It was like time had slowed down, the hours dragging by as I waited for the moment I knew was coming, the moment I had both feared and looked forward to. When I held my baby boy in my arms for the first time, I felt a mixture of emotions: joy, fear, excitement, and uncertainty all at once. The pain of childbirth faded away, replaced by a love I never knew I was capable of. The tiny bundle in my arms was everything I had hoped for. But then something struck me, something I hadn't fully prepared myself for. As I looked at him, I couldn't ignore the striking resemblance he had to Mark. His eyes, his chin, the shape of his face, it was all so familiar. There was no denying it. My baby boy looked so much like Mark, like a little version of him. It was a reality I hadn't truly confronted until now. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me wanted to shout it from the rooftops, to tell the world that this was Mark's son, that I had done it all for this moment. But another part of me just wanted to keep it to myself, to protect my heart, and to keep the truth hidden for as long as I could. So, I stayed quiet. I said nothing. I held my son close, and in that moment, I promised myself that I would raise him with love and care, no matter what happened with Mark or anyone else. The resemblance between them didn't change the fact that this was my son now, and I would do everything in my power to give him the life he deserved. The truth was, I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had to focus on the present, on the tiny life in my arms that was everything to me. 2 years had passed since Mark and I last spoke. Life had moved on for me, and I had built a new life around my baby boy. I had become a stronger person, raising my child on my own, finding happiness in places I never expected. I was content with where I was, living a simple, fulfilling life. Then one day, Mark reached out. I wasn't sure what to expect when I heard from him. He had always been a part of my past, but I didn't know if I was ready to revisit it. When I saw his name pop up on my phone, my heart did something strange. Part of me wanted to know why he was coming back after all this time, but another part of me had no desire to open that door again. I had moved on, and my life was focused on my son now, not on anyone from my past. We met up in person, and when he saw me, he seemed surprised. I could see it in his eyes, the shock, the disbelief. It was like he had expected to find me exactly the way he had left me, but that was no longer the case. I was different. I wasn't the same person who had once relied on him or anyone else to feel whole. I had learned to stand on my own 2 feet, and my son had become my world. Mark asked about my life, and as he looked at me, he noticed the obvious, the child I was carrying. The reality hit him hard. He had no idea. He had no clue that I had been pregnant with his child all those years ago, and I could see the questions written all over his face. But I didn't feel the need to explain. I didn't owe him any answers anymore. I greeted him politely, but that was all. I didn't give him any more details, didn't go into the story of how things had unfolded after he left. That chapter of my life had ended long ago, and I had no interest in reopening it. I had learned that some things were better left in the past. He seemed to want to say more, but I just smiled and kept my distance. I wasn't angry. I wasn't upset. I was simply at peace with where I was, with who I had become. And as for him, I had no intention of letting him disturb the life I had worked so hard to build with my son.